This is not a political issue. This is not a political podcast. No matter where you fall in the political spectrum, these changes will impact your applications this cycle to higher education. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. My name is Thomas Caleel. I'm the former director of MBA admissions and financial aid for my alma mater, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. In this podcast, I don't promise easy answers or quick fixes, but I will use my decades of experience to help you achieve your education goals. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Caleel, and today I want to take a pause and talk about the immense changes that are sweeping the admissions landscape in higher education. This is not a political issue. This is not a political podcast. No matter where you fall in the political spectrum, these changes will impact your applications this cycle to higher education. So I want to listen carefully, and I also want to hear what you think. Please engage with us on our social media at AdmittedlyCo. That's at AdmittedlyCo on Instagram and TikTok. I want to hear from you. I'm in the comments. I'm answering them myself in the DMs. So tell me what you think. Do you think these changes are going to have a material effect on you? And what can you do to enhance your chances this cycle? Okay, let's jump into it. So what's actually happening? I see three major trends here, right? Funding cuts, international students and visa issues, and then some of the move towards a less volatile campus environment. So let's take each of these in turn. First of all, funding cuts. Funding cuts have been in the news. The administration has levied enormous funding cuts and penalties on the top universities. Now, you may think that a school like Harvard with a multi-billion-dollar endowment can handle writing a $500 million check to the U.S. government. And on the one hand, that's true. I'm going to talk in a minute about how endowments work, but it's deeper than that. Pulling research funding dramatically affects the infrastructure and organization of the school. Many top professors go to these schools because of access to laboratories and funding and government subsidies and research and the cutting edge things that they can do. By pulling that, right, when that is pulled, one of the things we're going to see, I think, our top professors may be jumping ship, maybe trying to figure out, do I go to private industry? How do I continue my research? Because that's their primary motivating factor. It's also leading to cutbacks in departments, cutbacks in services, cutbacks in student services. These are really important. I've spent a lot of time the last few months going around talking to top universities, friends of mine, former colleagues, people I know, and there's a massive sense of insecurity and uncertainty. They're not really sure what this looks like. They're not sure what majors are going to survive. They're not sure what services are going to survive. Well, let's talk for a minute about the impact on the endowment. So when a school with a multi-billion-dollar endowment writes a large check, a couple $100 million, what does that mean? Well, to be very clear, what happens is that the financial office every year looks at the return they receive on the endowment. Then they calculate how much of that return, and it might be 2%, 3%, 4% of that return, that they can distribute into the operating budget of the university. So when I was at Wharton, every year we had to do our operating budget. We had to base it on last year's allocations. We'd get some indication from the financial office, what our budget would be. And then when we got the real number, we had to fine tune from there. You get a percentage. So let's say the endowment returns 8%. They might say, okay, half of that is going to go back into the endowment. Half of it we're going to use for operating expenses. So it's not like the university just dips into its endowment for whatever it wants. Their goal is to preserve that capital and ensure the continuity, survival, and thriving nature of that university many, many, many decades or centuries to come. There are also a lot of large capital projects and things that need to be funded out of the endowment. And again, that's usually funded out of the return. So when you start pulling huge chunks out of the endowment, it does lower the return that you're getting and the money available, but not in the direct way that most people think, like, oh, if Harvard had a $10 billion endowment, it now has a $9.5 billion endowment, so it's just less money for them to draw. It's more complicated than that. But at the end of the day, what happens is that schools have less money. Now, I've been talking to a lot of people in admissions, and there's no specific mandate to take full pay students, if it matters, full pay out of state students. But I think we're going to see that. If you are a full pay student, I think you are going to be preferenced in the process, even subconsciously. I think when you look at things like Michigan shifting to early decision, which is a binding contract, it really allows them to lock down students. They know their financial status. They know their full pay. They're locking them in. So they say, okay, this is our class. We know how much revenue we're getting. And then they can experiment a little bit more in regular decision. Similarly, right, a lot of studies have shown that legacy is a big determination of giving, right? Certain groups of alumni give a lot more than other groups. And so legacy is something I think schools are going to have to start leaning into a little bit more. The recent Stanford decision is a perfect example. So the state of California passed a law saying if you receive state funds, you may not use legacy as any kind of preference or indicator in admissions. So what Stanford has done is rejected the California state grants that it would get to provide scholarships for students, and it's going to pay those scholarships out of its endowment. Now, are they going to do an equal amount of scholarships that they would have gotten from Cal grants out of the endowment? Remains to be seen. But what it does say is that Stanford is looking at its long-term survival, its long-term excellence, its long-term financial health, and saying, hey, listen, this is a trade-off we are willing to make. We feel like our alumni are really valuable. We feel like they donate a lot. And so we're going to give them this special status. Is it fair? No. Is it the reality of where the universities find themselves at this moment in time? Absolutely. But for those of you who are thinking, but wait a minute, I need financial aid. If you are a U.S. student, you will still have access to financial aid. That is not going away. How much it varies, that's something that schools are trying to figure out right now. They're trying to see what the impact of these funding cuts and research cuts and endowment hits have on the overall financial aid pool. But I want to kind of take a step back here for a moment and reiterate the fact that admissions officers do what they do because they love what they do, right? They want to enroll an interesting, unique, diverse class, diverse on every single metric. So it's really important for you to communicate that to the school. If they ask a question about your community, your background, your involvement, talk about the things that matter to you. If you come from a socioeconomically deprived background, you want to talk about that. You want to talk about the struggles that you've faced, how you've overcome them. You want to use that section of the Common App that lets you talk about things you have to do, maybe instead of activities where you're working or you're taking care of family members or contributing to the household in some way. So keep in mind that admissions officers want to remain engaged. They want to know your story. They want to enroll as many diverse, interesting, unique, driven students as possible. So please don't give up hope on this, but just also realize that this year, more than any other year probably in history, the ability to full pay can enhance and may likely enhance your opportunity for admission.
We're taking a quick break from the episode because if you like this podcast, you'll love our free admissions webinar. It's where we go deeper, talk strategy, timelines, what colleges really look for, and how to build a game plan that actually gives your student an edge. It's 1 hour that could change your entire approach to college admissions, and it's totally free. Seats fill up fast, so grab yours now at www.admittedly.co. Just look for the free webinars on our resource page. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now, let's get back to it.
Now, international students. I get a lot of DMs, a lot of inquiries from international students. And here's the thing, right? Nobody's really sure what's going on. At the moment, it looks like many of the visa applications are going through. There are countries that have been designated by the U.S. government as countries that are probably going to have less likelihood of receiving a visa. I urge you to check the State Department website and see if your country is on that list. Please continue to apply, right? As an international student, universities, U.S. universities want international students. It's really important to them. It allows them to maintain a global footprint. They are integral and important to the fabric of academics and social life at universities. My personal opinion, I think that the percentage of international students is going to go down. I think that there are concerns over visas, whether or not they can get visas. There will be concerns over the visa policy now versus visa policy in an uncertain future. Nobody knows what's going to happen in a year or maybe 8-10 months when those students apply with their I-20s for student visas. Things can change very, very quickly. Things can swing wildly. And so for international students, I think it's a very uncertain time, and my heart goes out to you. International students who need financial aid, it's always been an uphill climb for you. It's always been harder if you check that box. And all I'm going to say is this. I think that this year, not only will international seats decline, but I really think the percentage of aid allocated to international students is going to have to decline. Schools are going to have to make cuts somewhere due to shrinking endowments, budget cuts, things like that. And while admissions officers are going to advocate very, very strongly for those students, and certainly some international students will get financial aid, I think that overall the number is going to go down. I think it's going to create more room, for lack of a better term, in the class for U.S. students. As a former director of admissions, I really think that international students are a critical and vital part of the ecosystem and atmosphere at universities. I don't think that that's going to go away. They're also a massive driver in the economics of a lot of schools. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that's dealt with, because many state schools, not just a prestigious university, but many state schools rely on international students, particularly like Indian and Chinese students, to make up huge budget shortfalls that they already have. And so if you cut those full pay students out, you have to make that up somewhere. So there's going to be a lot of scrambling, I think, in the mid to lower tier, let's say the, ranked 100 plus universities that have relied on this international funding. How are they going to bridge that gap? That's going to be a critical thing. If you are an international student, I think it's very, very important for you to be smart. I think it's important for you to put together a diverse portfolio. Don't place all your eggs in one basket. Don't just focus on U.S. schools. There is a universe of exceptional schools out there in Asia, Australia, Canada, the UK, the EU. Look, be smart, be thoughtful. The Middle East. Look at these schools and say, okay, do they fit my needs? Am I taking a long-term view? So for example, if I go to university in the UK or Canada, for example, I can absolutely go to MIT for my graduate work in 5 years from now. So take a long-term approach. One of the reasons we've brought on, and admittedly, a slew of counselors whose domain of expertise is international school admissions in the EU, UK, Canada, for example. We are there for you. We want to help you with this process and give you guidance from the ground. Many of our counselors actually live in those regions, and they can give you really expert advice on how the system works and how to best position yourself. The third thing that I want to talk about is this concept of reducing conflict on campus. And so, college campuses have always been hotbeds of activism. They have been hotbeds of social justice. They've been really places where young people stress test their ideas, express their voices. And what universities are seeing is that they are being severely penalized and punished for that. So this has given rise to this Schoolhouse Dialogues program with schools trying to tamp down potential disruption. I just want to say, coming out very strongly, I hate this concept. I think it is biased. I think it is awful. I don't think it's been stress tested. I think that plopping high school students in a Zoom call with peers where they're fearful of being judged does not lead to optimal outcomes. You need skilled moderators. You need a process. I think it disadvantages students who are not comfortable in that environment, who are not comfortable speaking up for themselves or defending themselves. I think it creates a lot of implicit bias. And so to me, I think the Schoolhouse Dialogues modality is terrible. I think that if schools want to assess something like this, they really need to find a better way, a more equitable way, something that applies to international students and domestic students equally. For international students, I want you to keep in mind that new visa regulations say specifically that you have to have your social media profiles unlocked. So again, no opinion here, but I want you to go in. I want you to be thoughtful about your social media. I want you to be thoughtful about what you're posting. And I want you to go in and make sure you're presenting your best self. Similarly, for U.S. students, I think that a lot of schools are going to start doing deeper dives, doing Google searches, looking at your online footprint, your digital footprint, looking at your social media. They can't do it to everybody. They can't do full scrubs, but you want to be sure that your online presence reflects who you are and you're being thoughtful about that. Not sanitizing yourself necessarily, but being thoughtful about how you're presenting yourself, which quite frankly is always a good idea. So here's the thing. The takeaway from all this is that for U.S. students who are full pay, this could be your best chance ever to get into a highly selective university. Schools are on their back foot. They are dealing with uncertainty, and they're going to want to matriculate a class that is as full pay as possible and as non-controversial as possible. That said, admissions officers do want an interesting, robust, diverse class. So make sure that you are talking about who you are talking about the unique factors of your background and what you bring to the table. And you can do so unapologetically. I want to do some math, though, for those of you who are getting your hopes up and thinking the door is wide open. This is still going to be an extraordinarily competitive year. Shortcuts, bad grades, lack of extracurricular activities, you're not going to sneak by. Let me do some basic math. Columbia, 60,000 applicants, 1,000 seats. What does this mean? Okay, let's assume that 30%, we could even be generous and say 40% of the incoming class last year was international. Okay, 400 seats. Let's say that number gets cut in half, 200 seats. So now we have 200 free seats. Well, that's 200 free seats on, let's say, 58,000 applications, 59,000 applications. The percentage change here is negligible. This is not carte blanche. This is not a guaranteed admit. It can, on the margins, possibly help bump you in the process. But the reality is there's still going to be a lot of students fighting for very, very, very few seats. And it's really important that you put your best foot forward. Plan ahead. Listen to my podcast. Please come to my free monthly webinars. We share a lot of information there, a lot of help around how to put your best foot forward, how to be strategic, how to structure your application in a way that's going to get you the results that you want. At the end of the day, discipline, diligence, intellectual curiosity, academic rigor, impact, all of these things do matter. They always matter. So please engage with me. What do you think? I want to hear from you at AdmittedlyCo on Instagram and TikTok. Visit our YouTube channel, please. I love the feedback. Your feedback is what drives me. It's why I do this in the first place. I know this is a stressful time. I want to be here for you to answer your questions. Myself and my team, we're here behind you every step of the way. Thank you so much for following. I'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Admittedly podcast and download this episode. I welcome you to share your thoughts and questions with me. You can find us on social media at Admittedly Podcast. I look forward to continuing our